Okay. And here we go. Hello, everyone. I am Katie Sanford, and I am here with the beautiful Dr. Shannan Crawford, a licensed psychologist and CEO of Crawford and Associates. And she is also a wonderful speaker and just a beautiful sister in Christ. And to know her is to love her. We've had the pleasure of having her actually speak at Diamond League before. And she has started a kind of a podcast series I've been following. It's been amazing to watch. So I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about that. So hello, Dr. Crawford.
Hello, everybody. I'm so delighted to be with you. I know that we've gone through a lot in the last year, and I wish I could hug all of you. I miss our community and just that time of fellowship and connection. So I know that we've all had a really, really, really unique experience in the last year,
Yes.
and we would just love to hear from you if there's a chat going on of your experience and what it's been like for you, because I think each of us are handling it so differently. And we'd love to give you an opportunity to just kind of process that and honor your experience. And then two, a couple practical things that may be helpful as we're kind of getting our bearings after all of the pivots this last year.
Absolutely. And you're right, pivots. I think we've all had to pivot a lot. And she is right. We've all had huge differences in experiences. And I know from talking to others so I think that would be awesome. If y'all love to, I would love for y'all to share kind of what you've had. We could even start kind of a group chat going on or something like that. I think that would be amazing. So, Dr. Crawford, tell us a little bit about maybe your experience last year. Like, did you have to pivot? What did you have to do? How did that work for you? What are some of your takeaways?
Absolutely. So, what's interesting? I went on a women's retreat and I think it was January of 2020. So, before I knew anything was going to happen, and they told us to go and just journal and process and kind of ask God for a word or expression or something, just kind of encourage you for the year ahead. And so, obviously, I don't know what the next year holds. None of us do. And I'm writing it down, and I felt like the Lord said, I'm going to put you on my payroll. And I was like, that's a really weird thing to say. And so I didn't know that starting March a year ago, that, a lot of my clients would be going, oh gosh, I don't know if I can afford therapy is. And so instead of feeling a lot of fear, which obviously I did initially of like, oh my gosh, I still have to like pay for things and like have a livelihood and like I'm a businesswoman, so there's not really somebody else that I can charge for my services if I can't pay rent or mortgage or whatever, right? So when I would get scared, it was really nice to go back and anchor to that promise. So for whatever people out there, if there's something encouraging, it doesn't have to be biblical or God speaking to you by any means, but if there's something that's just reassuring, like my mom used to tell me, this too will pass. Like we've gone through the Great Depression as a country, we've gone through the swine flu, and we've gone through all of these things and world wars. America will move forward. We don't know how, we don't know what ways, but even in the shaking, everything that's good and is substantial will last. And a lot of things that may have just been busy work in your life, those will naturally fall away. And part of like this orphan mindset is that I want to hang on to everything and all those appointments and all that busyness because it makes me feel validated as a person. It makes me feel special and important, and my calendar is full. So, one thing that shook a lot of us, me included, is just not having so much busyness because I didn't know that I was deriving some self worth and value, importance from having a full schedule and meetings and agendas. And, 100% of my speaking engagements were just wiped out that were already booked out for the whole year. So in that shaking, we can say, oh my gosh, fear, and then kind of pause the movie. So I like to think of our lives like a movie, that in the middle of the climax where it's like all is lost, you pause the movie. And that's what catastrophizing is. That's when your mind takes the current emotion and circumstance and projects it into the future that it really is this bad and it will always be this bad.
Right.
Instead of playing the movie all the way through, and there's always some intervention, something happens and it turns for good, unless it's like a really weird indie movie. Most movies kind of end well, and you can see how the lead character had to fight through some stuff and they went through obstacles, but they actually became deeper, richer, more thoughtful, more considerate. They developed a new business or a new art form in the middle of whatever their crisis was. So whenever I'm in those moments, I try to remind myself, if this were a movie, what point of the
Mhm.
movie am I in? And am I playing it through? Or am I stopping right at like the worst scary part, like the scary guys coming behind the girl? Am I pausing it there and going, oh my God, it's always going to be bad. I'm never going to have clients. I'm not going to be able to afford anything. I'm going to live under the bridge with the feral cats and the dirty needles.
Oh
Do
gosh.
I let myself go there? Or do I pull back and say, what am I being invited into? So I don't know about all the ladies out there, but I can speak for
Right.
myself. Adjunct professor, business owner, consultant, speaker, psychologist. Obviously, I'm doing a lot, and I was pretty burnt out, and I didn't even realize it until life
Mhm.
started to slow down. So
Right.
instead of getting frustrated and bitter about the change, I've initially resisted it, of course, but
Yeah.
as I leaned into this reset, I started to find the new rhythm and pace. It wasn't always perfect. Life always still had the craziness, but I started to write. And
Mhm.
I've started a creative book. It's psychological principles and an allegory. So it's like this CEO type girl and her espionage and romance and all of that. So trying to make an art form out of something I never would have done if I had stayed at the pace of life before, and then started a YouTube channel. And now I'm launching a podcast. So all of that came as like a life was pruning and pulling back. It gave me the rest and the
Mhm.
margin to just slow down. For me personally, to spend more time with God, for Him to say, I love you, I'm proud of you, whether you never make money a day in your life, whether you never work a day in your life, I just love you for you.
Yeah.
And it just like filled my emotional cup. So now I have so much more to give back to people. And
Mhm.
then Katie and I were just talking before starting the video that now I've really been intentional to pursue some of those little side hustles of like speaking and podcasting that I had kind of put on the side, right? That was my little hustle that I did after work at night or on my weekends. But now saying, hey, I'm really dedicating Thursday and Friday to book writing, to podcasting, communicating, because that's another passion. So for
Right.
anyone out there, you can look at your movie and say it's terrible, it's horrible, because that's all you've known.
Mhm.
Or you can play the movie out and see if there's something new that might be evolving and blossoming. And if you will put the attention and the time to take care of your soul so you get replenished and no longer burnt out, then
Mhm.
you can start leaning into some new chapters of life and start innovating and having dreams come to life that before were just like esoteric. It would be nice if, versus
Mhm.
now I'm really dedicating time, money, effort, energy, time blocking, right? That I'm actually putting that as a forefront rather than little side burner that I'll get to one day.
Right. No, I think that's great. I think that's a great way to look at it. Because like we were talking about earlier, you have the different emotions and the feelings that have gone on this past year, but it's okay to have them and acknowledge them, but then what do you do with it? And like you said, I like the correlation to the movie in our lives, because that's really what it is one big movie. We just aren't filming it. So I think that's a great way to look at it.
Mhm.
So what would you say are some things that, to kind of have that positive outlook that you've taken with it, like what are some things that one could do if they have maybe had more like a negative experience? They felt like they've lost their business, they felt like they've been isolated and alone, and all just the negative things that have happened.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone to kind of help, like, well, let's find the positive and
Mhm.
channel ourselves to look at it that way?
Sure. Absolutely. Well, first, obviously, I'm a psychologist first and foremost. So I would say we have to honor our experience and we
Sure.
can't just Pollyanna our way through life.
Mhm.
That would be my natural personality bent, but enough clinical psychology teaches you the Zeigarnik effect that your brain will bring it back. And so
Mhm.
for some of us, we've tried to willpower ourselves a little bit too much through this
Mhm.
season. And so that will actually leave you way more burnt out because you're trying to force yourself into happy and positivity before your soul is ready. So
Okay.
even for myself, I had to really take time to just like, oh my gosh, like I mean, this is the point in the movie where it's overwhelming and it's stressful, and I'm not going back to work, and I don't know what that's going to look like, and I don't know if clients are still going to schedule or if the economy is just going to bottom out on all of us. So
Mhm.
there's a real honest process. My mom even went up to heaven during this time, not because of COVID, but she was promoted to heaven for a different reason. And so I know that I have to create margin to honor my soul. So, one,
Mhm.
I want to normalize. Everybody's had a completely different experience. And if it's just starting to have panic attacks or fear over your kids, or now you're taking care of an older parent, or
Mhm.
related to your business or your finances or your spouse, or a lot of addictions have increased, suicide thoughts have increased,
Mhm.
marital issues have increased. So, there's a lot of real things that all of us, me included, that we're all going
Mhm.
through. So,
Mhm.
one, I want to honor that experience and tell you to take time to journal it, process, and give yourself compassion.
Mhm.
The only way that relieves and releases out of your system is by saying, hey, it's okay that I'm feeling like this. I'm acknowledging that this is normal and it's part of being human, and that I have the right to process the sad, the anger, the frustration, the powerlessness associated with this event.
Mhm.
Ironically, most people develop anxiety and depression disorders because they didn't grieve the adjustment of something earlier in life. And the whole pandemic, the whole news media and fear mongering and everything involved, that is vicarious trauma constantly. You don't need somebody to rape you in the back alley to have complete panic disorder now, because we've just been inundated with so much negativity. And that's
Mhm.
not good for us. The research shows that those at the actual ground zero of 9/11, the people who watched it on the news repeatedly had very similar PTSD
Mhm.
symptoms, because vicarious trauma is still very real. And so
Mhm.
we've gone through a lot and we have to slow down and actually process it. The
Mhm.
good thing is, when you let yourself process it and you're like, okay, I've honored that. I accept that that is reality. I can't change it. But now what do I choose to do with it? And so when
Sure.
I had more time to not see clients, then I started to, one, heal my soul. My mom started getting sick. So what does that look like to kind of
Mhm.
process through everything? One, I built really good support system. Two, I really leaned into my faith and
Mhm.
just like going on prayer walks and being active and exercising, trying to get good energy back in my system. And
Mhm.
then making sure that I'm daily saying, I choose to do something powerful today. I choose
Mhm.
not to be a victim of this situation. Yes, I need to honor it. I need to mourn it. I need to get the ugly cry out of me. And then I
Mhm.
need to get back up and say, now I choose to do this. So,
Mhm.
for many of you, I would encourage to just maybe take an hour every morning to
Mhm.
just be, to stop the to-do list and the laundry and the kids and the demands the best that you can. If you have to wake up early, take an hour and just say, how is my soul? Like, I just need to check
Mhm.
in. And then just start journaling and processing. You need to write a letter to somebody. You need to write a letter to yourself. You need to just kind of go through a process. Maybe you've had a betrayal during this time. A lot of people have kind of glitched and not act like
Mhm.
themselves. And so some of our main support system have been the very people that have kind of walked out or been unavailable. That's really, really gut checking. So make
Mhm.
sure that you take that time. And then after that hour, don't take it with you the rest of the day.
Sure.
Right? Like, I'm budgeting the time to say, my soul is priority. I need to put the oxygen mask on me. So now I have something to give to those around me. And then
Mhm.
I choose to be powerful. Is this life giving? Will this bring good harvest into my life? Or will this bring more negativity and cynicism and pessimism? Just scrolling social media in comparison. That is like
Mhm.
seriously the number one thing I hear in my office is how much social media just leads to such feelings of less than and inferior in
Mhm.
comparison. So maybe we need to make a choice to limit, unless it's directly tied to your work. And I would do just the work on social media versus just scrolling and mind numbing, because
Mhm.
that, while it feels like you're just relaxing, it's actually going to lower your brain pathways even lower than if you were sleeping. You would be better off with a 15-minute nap than chocolate, caffeine, or TV or scrolling social media. We turn to those things because it hits dopamine, it hits a reward pathway, and it gives us an artificial high. But it's kind of
Mhm.
like cotton candy, there's no substance. So then you crash just as quick. And then the addiction cycle, right? Where then I need something else to come fill me back up and hit that dopamine reward pathway again. You would do much better to have a little bit of turkey, a little avocado, almonds, something with good healthy fat, take a 15-minute nap, and then say, I am worth the investment of this nap. Now I choose to lean into my goals. What would I dream? What would I love to do at the end of this? And like we were saying at the beginning, I had all these ideas. I'm going to learn a language. I'm going to start this. I'm going to start that. And of course, none of that happened because I
Right.
hadn't done this part yet. But
I think you're right.
after I did that part, I did start writing books and doing creative things. And it was like this pruning of everything kind of going quiet and this reset. Now it's like this supernatural energy and catapult of creativity has come because you do the first thing first. You put the oxygen mask on you. You
Mhm.
take time to take care of yourself as a lifestyle, not as like a one
Mhm.
and done.
Right.
When I meet with people, I say these are now lifestyle habits, just like flossing and brushing your teeth. You can go to the dentist and have a great appointment. But if the next time you brush your teeth is another 6 months from now, you are going to smell real rank and you're going to have a lot of sweaters on your teeth, right? The same
Yeah.
with mental health. If we're not doing that internal work first, then now I have so much greatness to give to the world. And that then begets more momentum.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
strength begets more strength, positivity begets more positivity. And then you surround yourself with positive people and messages, podcasts, whatever you need to be filling yourself up with the right energy. And then again, do it again tomorrow. You might have had another client say, I can't afford your services, or
Mhm.
a deal close, or a job loss, or a relationship end. Then you take it a day at a time and then build back up into that place of, I choose to see this as an opportunity instead of an obstacle.
Mhm. I love that. I love it. And I think you're right. I think some people equate self-care probably with, kind of a waste of time. But it's
Mhm.
like I liked how you hit on I'm worth that. I think they think if I took a shower and I had my coffee and I got in the car that I've self-cared, right? And we are so much more complex than that as beings. And then I think with women, I think since our subconscious role is the caretaker of everyone, I feel like we put that even more on the back burner. Like you said, that whole you might have to get up an hour early to practice that just me
Mhm.
time to process through that. I think you
Mhm.
hit on a lot of things. I've been guilty of a lot of that too. Just I'm gonna just willpower through it. I'm just gonna keep going. And
Mhm.
then if you look at the end of the day, I probably wasn't as productive as I could have been if I was more
Mhm.
intentional with, you know, what I need to do and taking care of myself first so I can take care of everything else. And just
Exactly.
being all here, that's the
Mhm.
biggest game and place that I think we should focus. So I like that you hit on a lot of that. I think you're absolutely right. And I like the idea of a prayer walk. What does that look like? What does a prayer walk look like?
Yeah. So one, I just love being in nature and I am a natural
Mhm.
multitasker. You
Yeah.
can't be an entrepreneur and not multitask, right? So I just flow with that. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I love exercising. So
Mhm.
I will go out in nature and be
Mhm.
walking and then start saying, hey, God, what's your favorite thing about me? what are you thinking about? And it's not like there's an audible voice in a
Right.
burning bush, right? Like, but I'll just have a thought or a feeling, and I'm
Mhm.
just being childlike, right? And
Mhm.
so as I come like a child, then I just feel this hope and this joy and this passion because I see myself through his eyes. Or
Right.
I'll say, hey, God, I'm kind of anxious about this. Hey, I need to hand this burden to you.
Mhm.
And because my personality is more driver,
Mhm.
sitting sometimes and just praying, I get really distracted. So I just know
Mm.
that about myself. So if I'm driving or I'm walking or I'm doing something forward movement, I
Mhm.
feel like I can focus better. Some of my
Okay.
best creative, innovative ideas have come while moving in a direction
Mhm.
versus stagnation, because
Mhm.
what your body is doing is also syncing up with what your soul is doing. So if you're sedentary, sometimes it's a little harder for certain personality types to engage, and that's okay.
Mhm.
It's just differences. I do have times where I just sit and reflect and I'm present, but I found that sometimes just going on a walk and being around beauty and being around nature and just being like, hey, God, good job making that. Like, that's really beautiful. I bet that's how you feel about me. And
Mm.
so by
Wow.
faith, I'm not hearing him say that, right?
Mhm.
I don't have decided that he is good and he likes me and I like him. And so what I'm doing is I'm leaning into that oxytocin, the serotonin, the GABA, all of those neurochemicals that happen when you connect in relationship.
Mhm.
So, one of the fascinating things about how we're made is whether it's real or in your imagination, if you believe it's happening, it releases the same chemicals. So
Okay.
if you believe, like for many of us, we watch news. And so if you watch that news and then your body is watching it, that's what vicarious trauma is. It's literally releasing it like it's happening right now. So for the last year, we've had negative, negative, negative trauma, trauma, trauma. And it's literally releasing as if it's happening to your body right now.
Mm.
So, can you imagine how tired and burnt out and weary we all are? Nobody actually was a serial killer chasing us, but metaphorically, it's like your body has been running away from the serial killer of COVID all year long.
Mm.
So your body is just so depleted. The
Mhm.
best thing you could do is get a hug with some girlfriends or a loved one or somebody just wrap you up in their arms, because what we found is the little organs inside, when they get squeezed, just like when people have a weighted blanket or a pillow on their lap or you get a hug, when those get squeezed, it sends a signal up the vagus nerve to the amygdala. And
Mhm.
amygdala is that fire alarm part of your brain, that's fear and aggression. And
Mhm.
so that turns it off when we're being connected with somebody else. And so when I'm on a prayer walk, I'm just visualizing him hugging me, or I'm like, I'm really scared about this. I'll let myself cry. My neighbors probably think I'm totally crazy, but I could care less because I would rather be emotionally healthy for the people that I care about rather than the strangers
Absolutely.
and the haters out there.
Yeah.
So I'll just process things and I'll visualize being hugged by a loved one. If God is not the person you lean into, that's okay. That could be a grandparent or somebody that you just feel like really cares about you. And you just start kind of talking. So catharsis is when you don't have an objective of where you're going. You just let your insides finally release those burdens that have been on your chest that you didn't realize were accruing over time. So many of us, it feels like life is lackluster because it's like this wet blanket, just like heaviness sitting on your chest. And
Mhm.
in that heaviness, it's hard to feel joy. And everything is just kind of ho hum. That's called anhedonia. And what we found is if you'll just take the time to say, I think I am anxious about this. My
Mhm.
rational adult CEO brain doesn't think I should, but yet I am. And I
Yeah.
can be present with that and I can love myself through that and radically accept that reality without it being true. Doesn't mean
Mhm.
I'm going to make life decisions based on it. It just means I'm resonating with some part of my heart and my soul that's feeling anxious, afraid, intimidated, inadequate, incompetent, not capable of navigating this new pivot because you got into a rhythm and now you feel like your bearings and the rug's been pulled out from under you.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
want to honor that that's normal. And if you can just take time to say, hey, that's okay. And I need to give myself permission to get that off my chest. Like
Mhm.
after my mom was upgraded to heaven, I had some really good girlfriends that flew in and some local ones. And they would just sit and we would look at pictures and I would cry and I would cry and I would cry. And it's like a broken record where you just kind of
Mhm.
repeat a lot of the same stuff over and over. And fortunately, they were gracious and understood the process. So they just listened and honored and accepted. They didn't say, well, you've kind of already said that, or don't you think God has a plan, or blah, right? They didn't correct
Right.
me or try to get me somewhere where I wasn't. We just need to be okay where we're at, let
Mhm.
that happen naturally and organically. And then it's like this buoyancy. You'll come back online. Like
Mhm.
if your computer of your insides have been glitching for the last year, this too will pass. You will
Mhm.
be okay again. And then you'll feel this like river of living water where energy starts to come back out. And that's where a lot of creativity comes from.
Mhm. I love that. That's such a good way to put it. And I think you're right. I think so many feel like acknowledging like, or it's silly, or it's a waste of time, or
Mhm.
just our natural feelings, they're given to you, for a reason.
Absolutely.
So I think that's absolutely right. So just kind of to summarize, maybe next steps, whether you had a positive or a negative experience or both. I think we've
Mhm.
all had both these, this last year.
Yeah.
Just kind of acknowledging your feelings, and I like the reference of kind of the wet blanket, because I think pandemic or not, I think that's something that we've all kind of just dealt with, just in life, doing life, period. So whether it is a pandemic or not, I think you do have just the daily emotions and people and events and losses or gains or just all over that can give you that burnout that you mentioned, where you just feel
Yes.
kind of blah.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
Mhm.
so just I like that. I like what you said. Just kind of to summarize like the next steps. So you're saying, just kind of acknowledge and process those feelings, right?
Mhm.
And then just finding a good support system
Mhm.
and a good outlet, right? Whether that be your walks with Jesus in the park, or if
Mhm.
you're one of those that you do better just sitting and being or
Mhm.
moving. I'm sure there's a lot of ways you could do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And I
you,
think
no,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I
I
want
was
to
just
hear, you
gonna
might answer me.
um, think of it like understimulation and overstimulation,
Mhm,
that kind of like a computer, that if you get too much stimulation, it's like it short circuits. And
mhm,
so when we have too many demands, and even if it's good stuff, good stress is still distress to
mhm,
the body. If we
mhm,
don't take time to kind of come back down that natural rhythm, even our circadian rhythm, where you're supposed to get
mhm,
sleepy at night and then awake at day and all of that,
mhm,
that you're supposed to have that rhythm.
mhm,
So when you start to feel like overwhelmed, in
mhm,
that moment, it's like you're pausing the movie and you feel like, I can't do this. I need to get out of this marriage. I can't homeschool these kids anymore. Ship them away. I can't run this business. Like I am in the food line for the rest of my life. In that moment, what you're really saying is, my computer is glitching. I'm
mhm,
overstimulated. I've had way too many chemicals go through my brain and I don't have a reset to then fill it back up.
mhm.
Now, again, addiction doesn't have to just be alcohol and drugs. It could be
Sure.
anything that we turn to just get that dopamine reward pathway to self medicate. But if
Mhm,
instead I'm just still, sometimes in between patients, I'll just stand outside in the sun and just diligently clear my mind. And I'm just mindful and present in the
mhm,
moment. And it's like an ocean wave where you just let the distractions float up and up.
mhm,
But it's almost like a reset where I'm saying, hey, I don't have any demands. And when I
mhm,
lead clients in guided imagery, the first thing I always say is, nobody needs anything. Nobody wants anything from you. Take off the backpack of responsibility. You're okay. And you don't have to give anything right now.
mhm,
And we just let that internal reset. And you would be surprised, like I said, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. But when
mhm,
you catch yourself going, I'm overwhelmed and agitated and I can't do this, and you're grabbing the
mhm,
third cup of coffee, instead, your brain, your physiology, if you would just say, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed, And if I just sharpen the axe by taking 5 minutes to stand in the sun before my next Zoom meeting or whatever people have going on in their lives, or saying, hey, family, I love you so much. But right now, I'm just going to go journal, or I'm going to take a bath, or I'm going to go on a walk, and I'm just going to be alone and understimulated
Mm,
so that I can come back and then come back into homeostasis, which is that regular, healthy place of stimulation instead of
mhm.
being way over or way under. Boredom is the best thing you can do if you want to be creative. Because
Yeah.
when you understimulate your brain, it naturally goes, well, I could solve that. I could fix that. Well, how would I do that? But if we stay stimulated all the time, your brain is just trying to keep up with the hamster wheel pace of life instead of slowing down and going, man, what if this is the beginning of the next chapter of my life? What
Mhm,
if I push play in this movie and this becomes the part where the heroine does the next adventure and it's something incredible and there's twists and turns and plot development, but it's going to be amazing. If I would
mhm.
just do that, that act of faith and surrender to say, I am not God. I can't stay on all the time, even if it's good stuff like taking care of your family or your chores, your home. But I say, hey, I just need this 5 minutes to just be taken care of. And if you
Mhm.
can picture somebody hugging you or have a literal person hug you and just like, I'm just going to melt into your arms right now
Yeah.
and acknowledge and surrender that I don't have it all together. And
Mhm,
as you do and you give yourself time, your brain will naturally recalibrate and you won't feel as overwhelmed and you'll be able to go back to the task fresh. And the
mhm,
cool thing about the brain is it's been thinking the whole time. So now
mhm.
you'll come back to the task with new creative ideas and you'll be more spontaneous and fun and innovative than if you had just pushed yourself with the fourth cup of coffee through the task.
Right. I love that. I think that's good. I feel like you're talking to my soul right now. So, we'll soul hug until I can see you in person and I can get that real hug. No, I think I think you're so right. I think that the self-care and just taking a minute, because I mean that's society just in general right now is go, 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 go. Even
Yes.
with the pandemic, it was still go, 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 but now go from home, it was never a like, yeah, it shut down, but that just meant you had more to do at home now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're very right, and just taking a minute, because then I think that even couples with missing your blessings and missing your
Mm-hmm.
opportunities and events and growth for yourself, your spouse, your kids, your
Yeah.
friends' kids. You miss a lot when you're just go 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 all the time, and
Yes.
I think you're absolutely right. Just being there, taking a minute, just like breathe, and it'll make us
Mm-hmm.
all better people. So,
Yes.
no, I
Ooh,
think,
I
yeah.
want to say one more thing that I learned from one of my clients.
Mhm.
So, classical conditioning, if you can set a place that is your place to just be reset, that everybody in the family knows. So, I learned this from a mom who has very rambunctious kids and she has a lot of them. And so, she told them when she's in this chair, there's a bubble around her and they are not allowed to come to her. They have to go to dad while she is in that chair, and or they need to go play in their room or they need to go figure it out. And so that wasn't a place of neglect and a bad mother because she's on the rest of the day, but she just learned for herself and to teach her kids boundaries that others are not always at our beck and call, that for her to say when I'm in this chair in this place. So for anybody listening, I would love to encourage you to create a space that
Mhm.
might be your back patio, it might be a chair in your room or your living room or in your kitchen, somewhere that symbolically represents I don't do work from this place.
Mhm.
Katie, you made the great point that, we did a lot of work, but we got to come to a different environment at home. So
Mhm.
now everything is kind of commingled and your brain does associate, oh, I need to get this done and this done, and this done while you're trying to cook dinner and, feed the child and do the million things. So if you can say, this is that place that I just reset and chemicals, everybody, you're going to get filled back up. We're okay. And I choose to let the distractions go. And if you can't, then you write it down and then
Mhm.
you close that to symbolically say, I will tend to that later. If I just put the oxygen mask on first, then I
Mhm.
can go down the rest of the house and do that as my workspace. So, like for me, I have a literal office and
Mhm.
I close the door. This is my office place, but I also close the door when I'm in the rest of the house to symbolically symbolically say to myself, I am not in the office right now. I get to
Sure.
just be normal Shannan and not Dr. Crawford right now.
I love that. I think you're right. I heard a friend refer to it as her spirit spot.
Oh,
And I think that's good. And me and my husband actually were having that conversation about like we need a spirit spot, where it is just a beautiful, quiet, confined spot just to, you know, just to do that. So turn off the
yeah,
mind and be. So I think you're right. So that just backs up everything that I was even thinking about, and with that in regards to a spirit spot,
I
uh,
love it.
safe space, or however you want to refer to it, kid-free zone, whatever you want to refer to it as. I think that's a good, especially since things are so commingled right now. I think you
Yes.
need that divide at
Mhm,
your house.
mhm.
So no, I think you're absolutely right. Well, I think this has been so uplifting and helpful and positive, and you've made it feel where you don't like you are justified in your feelings, and that we've all had an array of them this last year. And so just kind of talking that out with you has been very refreshing and
Good.
given me and hopefully everybody listening kind of a new way to look at it, to maybe turn some of the negatives into positives. And even if you had positives, just take those and grow and roll with
Yeah.
those even more. So I'm loving everything that you've said, and the best practices for going forward. So Dr. Crawford, I so appreciate your time today. Is there anything that you would want to just kind of close with that we can just kind of take with us as a little summary or little tidbit, anything else you want to include in kind of what we've been talking about?
Absolutely. Most of the time, my job is to activate things and not just head knowledge.
Mhm,
Knowledge without activation usually ends up making us feel more guilty because I got a bunch
mhm,
of knowledge, but I don't know how to apply it. So then I'm like, oh, I'm even failing at that. Right. So if instead I can just activate you a little bit. So for anybody listening, as long as you're not driving, I want you to just take a couple of minutes to just do some deep breathing.
mhm,
And you would not believe how much that in itself, just some deep breaths. So, what you want to do is hold it for 6 seconds and then exhale slowly for 6 seconds. And as you do, you're wanting to exhale all that fear and anxiety. It's like I'm acknowledging it and releasing it out of my system.
mhm,
I'm not weak. I'm not bad for feeling it. I'm acknowledging it and now releasing it out. And then I would love for you to just visualize breathing in these rivers of living water, refreshing, of this hope and joy, like crystal clear Colorado rivers, where you're just being poured back into. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to deserve it. It's not going to be taken away. It's just this unmerited gift of joy and peace and love that doesn't have to generate from you. And so when you do that and you just take a couple minutes every morning to meditate on exchanging the heaviness, the fear, the insecurity, inadequacies, all those feelings, letting them be honored, validated, and released, and then breathing in this love, this joy, this peace that doesn't come from you, that you're just receiving it like a child on Christmas morning. Now you have something to give the rest of the day,
mhm.
because we can have great conversations, but if I don't get it into my actual body, my cells are still like hamster wheeling it or flintstoning it through the
Yeah.
day. You have to actually do things into your body, just like the chair or the walk or the stillness or the closing your eyes and just letting vitamin D through the sunlight. When you do that with your deep breaths, again, you're pushing those tiny little organs that tell the vagus nerve it's going to be okay.
Mhm.
And then you get GABA in your system that turns off cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol, ladies, makes us fat in our tummies. So you want to get the cortisol
We don't
off
want
and you
that.
want to get lots of GABA that your body goes, okay, I can release now. I don't need to hold all the calories and the fat. I can release. Things are going to be
Mhm,
okay. And you can actually tell your soul, hey, the scary things are over. It's going to be okay. I know that was a lot, but we're going
mhm,
to get through this. Body, I'm safe now.
mhm,
Safe is a key word to the unconscious to tell the body to switch out of the sympathetic, which is that overactive, into the parasympathetic. And the cool thing about parasympathetic, the same root word is paraclete, which is the word for the Holy Spirit. So just
Mm,
this sense of friendship and connection and belonging. Again, the way to switch out of sympathetic into parasympathetic is when you believe somebody cares about you, you're not alone, and you're connected in relationship. That is the
mm,
quickest way to switch your body coming into a place of rest and digest instead of the stress and fight flight all day. If you can do
mhm.
that one thing and just love your body, love your soul and your spirit well, then you're a change agent for positivity for the world around you.
I love it. I love that. That's a good practice. So I think we should all incorporate that. So I hope that all of y'all listening have some great takeaways. I know I have a list that I need to go write down in my journal before I start journaling, just to kind of just refresh, because we all are here with gifts and so much to give, and we don't want to hold ourselves back by overstressing and overworking on things that might not even be something we need to worry about. So just recentering, refocusing, like Dr. Crawford was kind of talking about, taking a moment to just bring yourself back. I think these are all some great tips, and I learned a whole lot in talking with you, just about different things and how the body all works with the mind and your spirit. And so I so appreciate all of that knowledge that you have left us with today. And how can somebody get a hold of you if they want to hear more about your podcast or your services or the things that you offer? How can they reach you?
Absolutely. Probably the easiest thing is just to go to my website. That'll be a landing page. Eventually, I'll have a lot more with the podcast. We haven't launched it yet, but it is called Unlock You with Dr. Shannan Crawford. And that's about doing the internal upgrades so that
Mhm.
we can have the external adventures and not be undermined by a bunch of soul neglect and glitching. So everything will be at my webpage. And then I also have a YouTube channel about going out and doing the adventures of life. So one's on the inside and the other one's on living the outside life. So my website is DR for Dr. Shannan, Shannan. In Gaelic, they differentiate male and female. So in Gaelic, it's a female spelling, Shannan, Crawford.com. So that's why it's spelled differently. And then you can contact me for all kinds of things. To be honest, therapy is pretty full, but I do have associates and I do leadership consulting and then speak and all that good stuff. So that's where it's probably easiest to get a hold of me.
Awesome. So visit her website, Dr. Shannan Crawford, Shannan with two A's,
Mm-hmm.
.com. And I cannot wait to subscribe to this podcast coming soon. So I'm going to keep checking back for that, as I'm sure all of our listeners will. So just thank you again, Dr. Crawford, so much for sharing with us today. I definitely feel even more just uplifted and motivated after our conversation. So I know others will too. So just thank you again so much. And I cannot wait to talk to you again soon and to get that real hug in person
Yes.
that I know is coming soon. So it's a therapeutic hug. I have to do it
Yes.
for therapy. Well, thank you again. And we will talk to you soon. And I cannot wait to hear your podcast.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much.